Perfect. She is going to need this. The words slipped out of my son-in-law's mouth as he held up a navy blue maid's uniform with a white apron that his mother had just handed over as a wedding gift for my daughter, Emily. I watched tears fill my little girl's eyes. I saw her hands tremble as she took that uniform. And something inside me, something that had been dormant for decades, woke up in that instant. My name is Linda Miller. I am 60 years old. And what happened that night changed everything forever. But before I continue, check if you are already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments. Where are you watching this video from? We love to know how far our stories are reaching. To understand what I did that night, I need to go back to the beginning. I need to tell you how my daughter met that man and how I realized too late what kind of family she was about to marry into. Emily met Preston 2.5 years ago. It was March, a Saturday morning. I was watering the plants on the balcony when she arrived, with that sparkle in her eyes that I had not seen since she was a teenager. "Mom, I met someone special." That simple phrase would change our lives forever. Preston came from a traditional, old-money family from the Gold Coast. His mother, Victoria Sterling, was known for her haughty air and her acid opinions about anyone who did not belong to her social circle. I should have paid more attention to the red flags from the very first meeting. It was at an expensive bistro downtown. Victoria arrived 40 minutes late without even a sincere apology. She looked me up and down, assessing my clothes, my hair, even the purse I was carrying. That day I let it slide. I thought maybe it was just the nervousness of a first meeting between in-laws, but she never called me by my name again. From that day forward, I was simply Emily's mom, as if I had no identity of my own. As if my 60 years of life meant nothing more than having given birth to the girl her son had chosen. It was as if my existence only had value in relation to my daughter, not for who I was. Emily was so in love that she did not see anything beyond Preston's eyes. I tried to alert her, subtly, without wanting to be the nagging mom that no one wants to listen to. "Honey, did you notice how Victoria talked that way about your job?" Emily just smiled and said that was just her way, that deep down she was a good person, that I needed to get to know her better. Preston was polite to me, always gentle in his words. But there was something about the way he looked when his mother made her venomous comments, a conspiratorial smile that made my skin crawl. It was as if they shared a private joke at the expense of those around them. I knew that look. I had seen it before, in other men, in those who learned from a young age that some people are worth more than others. The months went by, and the signs became more evident. One day, about 6 months before the wedding, Emily came home quieter than usual. She sat in the kitchen, where we always solved life's problems, and kept stirring her coffee without drinking it. Her eyes were distant, as if she were somewhere else. "Victoria said I need to learn to cook better," she murmured without looking at me. "She said her family has a certain standard for meals, that the recipes I learned with you are too simple, too common." My blood froze. I felt as if someone had slapped me. Those recipes were from my grandmother, from my mother, passed down for generations. They were made with love and care. But for Victoria Sterling, they were not good enough. And Preston? What did he say about that? Emily took a moment to answer. When she spoke, her voice came out almost in a whisper. He laughed. He said his mom was right, that I needed to try harder if I wanted to be part of the family for real. He said that when we get married, we are going to host his friends for dinner, and that I need to be up to the task. That night, I could not sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling of my room, remembering all the times in life when I let malicious comments slide to keep the peace. I thought of my own mother, who always taught me to keep my head down and accept things, not to cause a scene, to preserve appearances. And I swore there, staring into the darkness, that my daughter would not inherit my silence. But Emily was determined to get married. She loved that man, or at least, she loved the idea of him. She saw in him Prince Charming, the man who would take her out of our simple life and take her to a better world. I saw a man who was being molded by his mother to be exactly as she wanted. So I started making plans, secret plans that no one could imagine. For months I worked double shifts. I accepted every overtime shift that appeared at the hospital, where I have worked as a nurse for 30 years. I worked holidays, weekends, late nights. My colleagues thought I was in debt. I let them believe it. It was better that no one knew the truth. I sold the jewelry my grandmother left me, the ones I kept for an emergency. A pearl necklace, gold earrings, a ring with a small emerald. Each piece had a history, a memory, but my daughter's safety was worth more than any object. I also sold the old car that took me so long to buy. That car represented years of savings, of sacrifice, but I did not hesitate. Every penny was saved for a single purpose. No one knew. Not Emily, not my friends, no one. I had a plan, and I needed to execute it in absolute silence. I started eating less, buying clothes at thrift stores, cutting all superfluous expenses. Emily noticed I was thinner, more tired, but when she asked, I just said work was heavy. I looked for a discreet lawyer, recommended by a colleague at work. I explained what I wanted to do, and he looked at me with surprise and admiration. He was a gentleman of about 50 years. Gray hair, kind eyes. He listened to my entire story, without interrupting me. "Are you sure about this, ma'am? It is a big decision, a decision that can cause problems in your daughter's marriage." "I have never been so sure of anything in my life," I replied. "And if it causes problems, then it is because the marriage already had problems from the start." For months I saved every penny. I cut every extra expense. I stopped going to the hair salon, buying new clothes, going out to dinner with friends. My younger sister, Sarah, commented that I was different. "Linda, are you okay? You are so thin, so tired." "I am just fine," I lied, "just a little busy at work." Sarah did not insist. She had her own problems. She was getting divorced after 15 years of an unhappy marriage. The husband had kept everything, the house, the car, the savings. Everything was in his name. Sarah had nothing. She had to move back in with our mother, who was still alive at that time, at 43 years old, without a dime, without options. I visited Sarah every week. I saw the humiliation in her eyes. I saw how she felt ashamed of having to depend on our mother again. "Do you know what the worst part is?" she told me once. "It is not that he cheated on me. It is not that he left me. It is realizing that I spent 15 years building a life that was never mine. Everything was his. I was just a guest." Those words stayed with me. They echoed in my head every night before sleeping. I was not going to let Emily go through the same thing. I was not going to let my daughter be trapped, dependent, without options. Finally, 3 months before the wedding, I had enough money. I went to see condos with a real estate agent. I wanted something simple, but dignified. A place where my daughter could feel safe, where she had something that was hers alone, something no one could take away from her. We visited several properties. Some were too small. Others in neighborhoods I did not like. Some were in very bad shape, needing expensive renovations. But the 7th apartment was perfect. It was in an older but well-maintained building, in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood in the city, near the park. It had 2 bedrooms, a wide living room with a balcony, spacious kitchen, and lots of natural light. The windows overlooked a park with century-old trees. As soon as I walked in, I knew it was the one. I felt a peace, a feeling that that place had good energy. "This is it," I told the agent. He was surprised. "Do you not want to see the rest? We still have 3 apartments on the list." "It is not necessary. This is the one." I signed all the papers that same week. The deed was made only in Emily's name. No line included Preston or any mention of marital assets. The lawyer guaranteed that everything was protected by a special clause, impossible to be contested even after the wedding. That apartment would be hers and hers alone, whatever happened. "Miss Miller," the lawyer said, "when we finished everything, what you are doing is very rare, very wise. I wish more mothers thought like this." I kept the documents in a blue velvet box that I bought especially for the occasion. I chose blue because it was always Emily's favorite color since she was little. And I waited. I waited for the wedding day, the right moment to reveal my gift. I knew there would be consequences. I knew Victoria would not accept that willingly. But I did not care. My daughter's safety was worth any war I had to face. The preparations for the wedding were torture. Victoria assumed total control of everything. Emily barely had a voice in the decisions. The mother-in-law chose the venue, the flowers, the menu. Even the wedding dress had to pass her approval. "That neckline is too daring," she would say. "That style is not appropriate for a bride from a traditional family." Emily came home crying almost every week. "Mom, it feels like it is not even my wedding. It is the wedding Victoria wants." I comforted her, dried her tears, but deep down, I was furious. Furious with Preston for not defending his fiancée, furious with that controlling woman, furious with myself for not being able to do more. But I had my plan, and I clung to it like a castaway clings to a plank in the middle of the ocean. 1 month before the wedding, Victoria organized a dinner at her house so the two families could get to know each other better. The house was huge, ostentatious, full of expensive objects, and without any warmth. Everything was to impress, to show status. During dinner, Victoria made sure to highlight the differences between our families. "We have always valued education," she said, even though Emily had finished college with better grades than Preston. "We have always had a certain standard of living," she continued, looking around her own house as if it were a palace. My sister Sarah, who had gone with me, squeezed my hand under the table. She knew I was holding back not to say anything, but I remained quiet. It was not time to show my cards yet. Preston, sitting next to Emily, agreed with everything his mother said. It was like watching a well-trained puppy giving its paw. At the end of the dinner, when we were leaving, Preston's father, Arthur Sterling, took me aside. He was a tall, elegant man of few smiles. "Mrs. Miller, forgive my wife. She sometimes exaggerates." They were the only words he said, but there was so much weight in them. There was sadness, regret, exhaustion. I realized in that moment that he was also a prisoner of that woman, that he had also bowed his head years ago and now lived the consequences. "Thank you," that was all I managed to answer. He nodded and went back inside the house like a man returning to his prison. The wedding day arrived like an announced storm. The hall was decorated with white and gold flowers, all paid for by Preston's family, of course. Victoria made sure all the guests knew. "We spared no expense for our son," I heard her say at least 5 times during the reception, as if love could be measured in money spent. Emily looked beautiful in the lace dress I helped choose. It was the only detail of the wedding she had managed to decide alone. The dress was simple but elegant, with lace sleeves and a short train. She was smiling, but I knew that smile. It was the smile of someone trying to convince herself that she is happy, that she made the right decision. I saw that same smile on my sister Sarah's face years ago, the day she married a man who spent the next 15 years treating her like a servant. I saw that smile in the mirror when I was younger and pretended everything was fine when it was not. It is a smile that we women learn to make very early on. The ceremony was beautiful. I cried like every mother cries seeing her daughter get married, but my tears carried something more than emotion. They carried fear. Fear of what was to come. Fear that my daughter was making the biggest mistake of her life. Fear that my gift would not be enough to protect her. After the ceremony came the reception. The endless toasts, the fake smiles, the looks of superiority from the Sterling family and their wealthy friends. I heard comments about our side of the family. "They are simple people," they said in low voices, but not low enough. "At least the girl is pretty and educated," as if Emily were merchandise being evaluated, as if she had to be grateful for having been chosen by someone from the Sterling family. My sister Sarah sat next to me during almost the entire party. "You are very quiet," she commented. "You are plotting something." "Me?" I feigned innocence. "Linda, I have known you for 60 years. I know when you are planning something. What are you going to do?" "You will see," I replied simply. Then came the time for the gifts. The bride and groom were sitting at a decorated table, opening the envelopes and boxes the guests brought. Until that moment, everything had been predictable. Money, kitchen gadgets, some expensive appliances. Preston opened every gift with that air of someone who deserves everything he is receiving. Emily thanked with politeness, but without much enthusiasm. But then Victoria stood up. She was carrying a box wrapped in gold paper, walking toward the couple with that smile I had already learned to fear. It was a smile that did not reach the eyes, a smile full of poison disguised as honey. I felt my heart race. Something bad was about to happen. "My dear Emily," she said loudly, "so everyone could hear, I want to give you something very special, something practical for your new life." She opened the box slowly. dramatizing every movement. And from inside, she pulled out a maid's uniform, navy blue, with an immaculate white apron. Emily's name was embroidered on the chest pocket with careful lettering. The silence that fell over the hall was deafening. People stopped talking, stopped eating, everyone looking at that surreal scene. "So you will always be presentable when you are taking care of the house," Victoria continued with a venomous smile. "A wife needs to know her place. She needs to understand that her role is to take care of the home, of the husband, to keep everything in order, like a good maid does." Some of her friends chuckled softly, hiding their mouths with napkins. Others just watched with that expression of someone witnessing a car accident, but unable to look away. There was shame in the air, but there was also malice. There were people there who were enjoying that, who found it amusing to see someone being publicly humiliated. Emily took the uniform with trembling hands. She tried to smile, tried to maintain composure, not to make a scene. I saw the tears beginning to form in her eyes. I saw the humiliation taking over my daughter's face. I saw 26 years of life being reduced to a maid's uniform. And then Preston did the unthinkable. He took the uniform from Emily's hands, held it up for everyone to see. He looked at his mother with approval and then at my daughter and said, "Perfect. She is going to need this exactly. Thank you very much, Mom." Those words resonated in the hall like a gunshot. I saw my daughter go pale. I saw her chin tremble, trying to hold back the crying. I saw all hope vanish from the face of that 26-year-old girl who still believed in fairy tales. I saw the exact moment her heart broke. And something inside me exploded. All the rage I had contained for months, all the humiliation I had swallowed, all the injustice I had witnessed, it all came to the surface at once. But I did not scream. I did not make a scandal. Because I had something much better than screams. I had a plan. I got up from my chair slowly. My legs were shaking, but my determination was iron. I felt the weight of the blue velvet box inside my purse. That little box was my secret weapon. It was months of work, of sacrifice, of silent planning, finally coming to light. I walked to the couple's table while everyone watched me. The hall was in absolute silence. Even the music had stopped. The DJ had paused the song in the middle. All eyes were on me. "What an interesting gift, Victoria," I said with a voice firm and clear. "Very creative of you. It really shows how much you think of Emily." The sarcasm was evident, but I kept the tone polite. "Now allow me to give my gift to my daughter." I took the blue velvet box out of my purse. It was small, delicate, nothing ostentatious, nothing like the expensive gifts that had been given until then. Some guests looked at each other, probably thinking it would be cheap jewelry or something like that. Little did they know, Emily's hands were trembling when she took the box. She looked at me with those eyes full of confusion and pain, not understanding what was happening, not understanding why I had stood up that way, why all that drama. "Open it, my love," I whispered, but loud enough for people nearby to hear. "Open it and read it out loud." She opened the box slowly, as if she were afraid of what she would find inside. Inside were 2 carefully folded documents and a small golden key. Emily took them with shaking hands and started reading in silence. I saw her eyes scan the lines 1, 2, 3 times. I saw the exact moment when she understood what she was seeing. I saw when the confusion gave way to surprise, and the surprise gave way to something that looked like hope. "Mom," she whispered, "what is this? This cannot be real. Read it out loud, daughter. I want everyone to hear. I want every single person in this hall to know exactly what you are receiving." Emily swallowed hard. Her hands were still shaking, but there was something new in her face, a spark that was not there before. With a choked voice, but increasingly firm, she began to read. "Property deed. Apartment located at Palm Street. Number 243. Apartment 302. Owner. Emily Miller. Solely Emily Miller." The silence in the hall deepened even more, if that was possible. It was as if someone had sucked all the air out of the room. Victoria had completely lost her composure. Her face, always so carefully made up, was white as paper. Her mouth was open in shock. Preston was no longer smiling. He looked at the documents as if they were a venomous snake about to strike. "What does this mean?" Preston asked with an altered voice, louder than normal. Some kind of joke? It means, I replied, looking directly into his eyes without blinking, that my daughter has a roof over her head. A 2-bedroom apartment, living room, kitchen, full bathroom, an apartment that is hers and hers alone. No one else has rights over it. Emily took the second document, still in shock. And this here, Mom? What is this? Read it, I encouraged her. She unfolded the second paper and read, this time with more firmness. Clause of exclusive ownership. This property belongs exclusively to the holder, Emily Miller, being considered a private asset not communicable to the marital assets regime, according to state property laws. In case of dissolution of the marital partnership, for any reason, this asset will remain the exclusive property of the holder, without right to any claim by the spouse. The words were technical, legal, but the meaning was crystal clear. That apartment was hers, hers alone. Preston had no rights over it and never would. Whether her marriage was happy or not, whether it was for the rest of her life or only a few months, that place would always be her refuge. It is your refuge, my love, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. Your security, your exit in case you need it. It is the guarantee that you will always have a home that no one can take away from you. No one. I looked directly at Preston when I said the last word. He understood the message. Victoria was the first to recover her voice. This is an insult, she screamed, not caring about the appearances she valued so much. Are you insinuating that my son is not going to take good care of his wife? What kind of message are you sending? I am not insinuating anything, I replied calmly, keeping my voice tone controlled. I was not going to let her make me lose my composure. I am just guaranteeing that my daughter has options, that she never depends completely on anyone to have a place to live. Options? Victoria practically spat the word. She is getting married. She does not need options. She needs to trust her husband. Trust and having security are not mutually exclusive things, I rebutted. A woman can trust her husband and still have something that is hers alone. In fact, I think that is healthy. I think every woman should have it. Preston stood up abruptly from the chair. His face was red with rage, the veins in his neck bulging. This is ridiculous. Emily does not need options. She has me. I am going to take care of her. She does not need a hidden apartment as if it were an escape route. And if one day you are not enough? I asked him, keeping my gaze fixed on him. And if one day she needs to leave? And if one day she decides she no longer wants to use that uniform your mother generously offered? Where does she go? Is she going to depend on your goodwill to have a place to sleep? The comparison with the uniform was intentional. I saw some people in the hall nod discreetly. I saw others whispering to each other. The tide was turning. People started murmuring. Some approved discreetly with their heads. Others seemed scandalized. But everyone was paying attention. Everyone had an opinion on what was happening. Preston's aunt, a white-haired lady who was always kind to me the few times we met, approached our table. Mrs. Aurora was Preston's father's sister. Linda, she said in a low voice, but not so low that others could not hear. You are a very wise woman, very brave. I wish someone had done this for me when I got married. She looked at Victoria with an expression that mixed pity and disapproval. Victoria, this time you went too far. That uniform was cruel and unnecessary. This girl is going to be your daughter-in-law. It would be good if you treated her with a minimum of respect. Victoria let out a choked scream. But before she could answer, her husband, Arthur, did something surprising. He got up from the chair where he was sitting. A slow and heavy movement, as if he carried the weight of years of silence. He approached the couple's table with measured steps. Everyone watched him. Victoria, too. She seemed nervous, not knowing what her husband was going to say. He never contradicted her in public, never confronted her. He was always the silent, absent husband, agreeing with everything. But in that moment something had changed. He looked at me, at Emily, at the document still in her trembling hands. Then he looked at his wife and his son. Victoria, he said heavily, with a tired voice. I think you exaggerated with that gift. The hall became even more silent, if that was possible. Victoria's jaw dropped. How dare you contradict me in front of everyone, in front of your family, our friends? I dare because it is about time someone told you that you crossed the line. he replied, his voice raising a bit in volume. That uniform was humiliating. It was cruel, and you know it. You knew exactly what you were doing. Then he turned to me. Mrs. Miller, I think you did very well indeed. I wish I had the courage to do something like that for my eldest daughter when she got married. Maybe today she would not be living in an unhappy marriage. His words fell like bombs in the hall. He had just admitted publicly that his daughter was unhappy in her marriage, that he knew it and regretted not doing anything. The party never recovered from that moment. The music started playing again, but no one was dancing anymore. People divided into groups. Some came to congratulate us, supporting what I had done. Others rallied around Victoria, forming a protective circle, murmuring words of comfort as if she were the victim of that situation. Emily hugged me so tight I thought she was going to break my ribs, her arms tight around me, her body shaking with sobs. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered in my ear. "Thank you for believing in me when not even I believed. Thank you for giving me this." "You will never need to use that uniform," I whispered back. "Never. You have your own roof now, your own life. No one can take that away from you." Preston barely looked at Emily. He had gone to a corner of the hall with his mother, the two talking in low voices but with abrupt gestures. Victoria gestured frantically, her face still red. Preston nodded, agreeing with everything she said. It was like seeing a ventriloquist and his dummy. My sister Sarah approached me with tears in her eyes. "Linda, you are incredible. I wish so much that someone had done that for me, that our mother had done that for me." She hugged Emily. "Your mother loves you very much, so much. Never forget what she did today. Never." The party continued, but the atmosphere was heavy, tense. Some guests started leaving earlier than planned. Others stayed, but talked in separate groups. Preston's family on one side, our family on the other, like two armies in opposing camps. When it was time for the cake, Emily and Preston made the cut together, but they barely looked at each other. They smiled for the photos, but they were empty, fake smiles that did not reach the eyes. That night, when the party finally ended around midnight, Emily and Preston left for their honeymoon, a resort, all-inclusive on the beach, all paid for by his family, of course. Another way to maintain control, to keep Emily in debt to them. But before getting into the car, my daughter hugged me again. "Mom, how did you know? How did you know that I would need this?" I held her face between my hands, because I know men like him, and I know women like her, and I know how this story usually ends. I told her about my sister Sarah with details I had never told her before, about how she had lost everything when she got divorced after 15 years of marriage, about how she had returned to our parents' house at 43 without a dime, without options, without dignity, about how she was still trying to rebuild her life at 48. I saw my sister wither away. I told Emily, tears sliding down my face. I saw her lose herself because she had nothing that was hers alone. I saw her have to swallow humiliations because she had nowhere to go. I am not going to let that happen to you. Never. Preston honked the horn impatiently. He was irritated, anxious to leave. Emily got into the car, and they left for the airport. I stood there at the door of the hall until the car's lights disappeared completely into the night. The hall was almost empty, just some staff clearing glasses and plates. I went back home alone that night in a taxi. My small apartment seemed even smaller, emptier. The walls were covered with photos of Emily, smiling baby in my arms, girl in school uniform on her first day of class, awkward teenager with braces on her teeth, college graduation with cap and gown, and now married, in a photo I had taken before the ceremony. I sat on the sofa with a cup of chamomile tea. I could not sleep. I kept thinking about everything that had happened, about Preston's face seeing the documents, about Victoria's venomous words, about my daughter's tight hug, about Arthur's unexpected support. Had I done the right thing? Had I helped or just made things worse? At 3 a.m, my phone rang. It was Emily. My heart raced. "My love, did you arrive at the hotel?" Silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, irregular, jagged. "Emily? Is everything okay?" "Preston is not talking to me since we left the hall." Her voice came out in a whisper loaded with pain. In the car to the airport, total silence. On the plane, he put on headphones and pretended I did not exist. Now we are in the hotel room and he is in the bathroom. He has not said a single word to me. I felt my heart tighten. And you? How do you feel? Confused. I should be happy. It is my honeymoon. It should be the happiest moment of my life. But he is punishing me with silence just because you gave me a gift. I took a deep breath before speaking. I needed to choose the right words. I needed to make her understand without sounding like the meddling mother-in-law I probably seemed to be to half the people in that hall. My love, listen to me carefully. If a man punishes you with silence just because you got something that protects you, that man does not love you. He wants to control you. And those are very different things. I heard her crying on the other end of the line, muffled sobs, as if she were trying not to make noise. Mom, we just got married. I promised to love him forever, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer. I know. And maybe tomorrow he wakes up different. Maybe he understands. Maybe he realizes that what I did was not against him, it was for you. But if he does not understand, if he continues to treat you badly because you have something that is yours, then you will know exactly who he truly is. We talked for a few more minutes. I could hear the shower water being turned off in the background. He is coming out of the bathroom, Emily said hurriedly. I need to hang up. Call me tomorrow or today, no matter the time. Okay? Okay, Mom. I love you. I love you too, my daughter, more than anything in this world. We hung up. I could not sleep the rest of the night. I lay staring at the ceiling, imagining my daughter in that hotel room, next to a man who was punishing her instead of celebrating her. Imagining what Victoria was telling him, what kind of poison she was putting in his head. The following days were torture. Emily called me every day, but the calls were short and tense. I could tell by her voice that something was very wrong. How are things going? I asked every time, trying to sound casual, but dying of worry inside. Fine, Mom. Everything is fine. But her tone of voice did not convince me. It was a tired voice, defeated, lifeless. Are you enjoying the beach? Going on tours? Yes, yes. Everything is beautiful here. But there was something empty in her words, as if she were reading from a script, saying what she thought I wanted to hear. On the 5th day of the honeymoon, she called me crying desperately. It was mid-afternoon. I was at work, on my lunch break. When I saw her name on the cell phone screen, I knew something was wrong. Mom, I need to tell you something. I need to vent to someone, or I am going to go crazy. Tell me, honey, you can talk about anything. Preston and I had a terrible fight last night, the worst fight of our lives. She could barely speak between sobs. He said the gift you gave me was manipulation, that you are turning me against him from the start, that no real wife needs to have properties in her name, because a real wife trusts her husband completely. I gripped the phone so hard my fingers turned white. I felt the rage rising like hot lava inside me. And what did you answer him? I told him it was not true, that you were only protecting me, that it had nothing to do with not trusting him. And then he said something that left me frozen. She stopped. Her voice choked. What did he say? He said that if I do not sell the apartment when we get back and put the money in a joint account with him, it is because I do not trust him. And if I do not trust, there is no point in being married. That he is going to ask for a divorce if I do not do it. My blood boiled. Emily, listen to me well. What Preston is doing has a name. It is called emotional manipulation. It is called control. It is called psychological abuse. He is making you feel guilty for something that is not your fault. He is punishing you for having something that is yours alone. But Mom, maybe he is right. Maybe I should trust him more. After all, we just got married. We promised to build a life together. Trusting does not mean handing over everything you have, I replied firmly. Trusting does not mean placing yourself in a position of complete vulnerability. You can trust him and still have something that is yours alone. One thing does not exclude the other. In fact, if he really loved you, he would be happy that you have that security. She cried a lot on that phone. She cried so much, I thought she was going to run out of tears. When we hung up, I sat in the cafeteria of the hospital where I work, looking at my lunch that I had not even touched. I had no appetite. I thought about calling Preston. I thought about telling him everything I thought of him. I thought about screaming at him that my daughter was not his property, but I did not. Because Emily needed to learn to defend herself alone. I could give her the tools, and I had given them to her in the form of that apartment. But she needed to learn to use them. She needed to find her own voice, and I could not do that for her, as much as I wanted to. Emily and Preston returned from the honeymoon the following Sunday. A week that should have been magical had turned into a nightmare. I went to pick them up at the airport, along with Preston's parents, in a tension you could cut with a knife. Victoria did not even look at me. She acted as if I were invisible, as if I did not exist there. Arthur, on the other hand, greeted me warmly with a tight hug. "How are you, Linda?" "Worried," I replied honestly. I saw no point in lying to him. "Me too," he whispered in my ear while hugging me. "Very worried." When Emily and Preston came out of the arrivals area, I noticed immediately that something had changed irreversibly. They walked separately, with at least 6 feet of distance between them. He went ahead, pulling the suitcase with unnecessary force. She behind, dragging her own suitcase, with her body hunched as if she carried an invisible weight on her back. Emily hugged me tight when she saw me. She was visibly thinner, as if she had lost 6 pounds in a week. She had deep, dark circles under her eyes that makeup could not hide completely. Red eyes from so much crying. "My love, are you okay? Did you eat well this week?" "Yes, Mom," she lied without looking me in the eyes. Preston did not greet me. He did not look at me. He acted as if I were also invisible. He went straight to his parents' car without saying a word. In the parking lot, Victoria approached them with a fake smile plastered on her face. "Children, come have dinner at home tonight. We need to talk about your plans for real now. About where you are going to live, how you are going to organize finances, those important things." Preston nodded immediately, as he always did with everything his mother said. "Yes, Mom, let's go." It was like seeing an obedient dog responding to commands. But Emily, to my surprise and pride, said something different. "No, thank you, Victoria. I am very tired from the trip. I want to go home to rest." To my home. The emphasis she put on the word "my" did not go unnoticed. "To your home?" Victoria asked with pure venom in her voice. "You mean the apartment your mother bought to control you? To destroy your marriage before it even started?" And then Emily did something I will never forget for the rest of my life. She straightened up, as if an invisible force had stretched her spine. She lifted her chin with dignity. She looked her mother-in-law directly in the eyes, without blinking, and said with a firm voice, "I am talking about my house, the house that is in my name, the house where my husband and I are going to live. And if he has a problem with that, then we have much bigger problems than deciding where to have dinner tonight." The silence that followed was absolute and heavy. Preston looked at her with wide eyes, as if he were seeing a stranger instead of his wife. Victoria turned purple with rage, the veins in her neck bulging. Arthur smiled discreetly, a quick smile that disappeared before anyone else noticed, and I felt I could breathe for the first time in days. My daughter had found her voice. We went straight to the apartment. Preston drove in sepulchral silence, his jaw clenched, hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. I followed in a taxi behind them because I wanted to see the apartment. I wanted to make sure everything was in order. When we arrived, the building was exactly as I had left it on the last visit 2 weeks earlier. I had even put some flowers on the balcony. Emily got out of the car slowly and stood in front of the gate for a long moment. She looked at the 5-story building, the trees on the street, the park across the way. "It is beautiful, Mom," she whispered with tears in her eyes. "It is really beautiful. And it is mine." We went up the 3 floors by the stairs. The elevator was under maintenance. I opened the apartment door with the key I had kept. The place was exactly as I had left it, empty of furniture, but clean, smelling of lavender from the air freshener I had put in. The windows open, letting in abundant natural light. "I thought you could decorate it your way," I explained while Emily walked through every room. "Choose your own furniture, your own colors, your own curtains. Make this place truly yours, a reflection of who you are." She walked through every room with reverence, as if she were in a sacred temple. She touched the walls with her fingertips. She looked out the windows, imagining the view she would have every morning. She turned on the bathroom taps to see if the water pressure was good. Her eyes shone in a way I had not seen for months, maybe years. Preston, on the other hand, walked around the apartment with his hands in his pockets, examining everything with an expression of deep displeasure. He touched things as if they were dirty. He looked around as if the place were a shack, not a decent apartment. "It is small," he said finally, the first thing he said since the airport. "It has 2 generous bedrooms, a full bathroom with a large shower, wide living room with balcony, spacious kitchen," I replied, controlling my irritation. "For a young couple starting life, it is more than enough. It is perfect. My apartment downtown is double this size. It has 2 parking spots, a pool, sauna, gym. This is her house, not a rented apartment you can leave when you get tired," I rebutted. "It is property, it is investment, it is security." He looked at me with pure hate in his eyes, a hate that scared me with its intensity. "It is not her house. It is Emily's. You made sure of that very well, didn't you? You guaranteed I had no right to anything." "Exactly," I replied without looking away. "Exactly that." The tension in the air was so dense you could feel it physically. Emily stood between the two of us, clearly uncomfortable. "Mom, Preston, please, I do not want fights. I am tired." I decided it was time to leave. They needed to talk alone. But before leaving, I left an envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside was $1,000 in cash and a list of furniture stores with good prices. "For you to start," I explained. "It is not much, but enough to buy the essentials." Emily hugged me at the door. "Thank you for everything, Mom, for everything truly." She was crying again. "I still cannot believe this is real, that I have a place that is mine alone. Believe it, my daughter, and never let anyone take it away from you. For anything in this world." In the taxi back home, I kept thinking about everything that was still to come. The honeymoon had been a disaster. The marriage was starting on the wrong foot. But at least Emily had the apartment. She had a solid foundation. She had somewhere to run if she needed to. And I was sure she was going to need it. The following days were strange and tense. Emily rarely called me, and when she did, her voice sounded dull, distant, as if she were speaking underwater. "How are things going?" I always asked, trying to sound casual, but failing miserably. "Did you buy furniture?" "Some." Preston insists that everything has to be expensive brands. He says he cannot live with common furniture, that people are going to judge. But we do not have money for designer furniture. And you? What do you think? I think we should buy what fits in our budget. But he does not listen to me. He says I do not understand style, that I come from a simple family and do not know what quality is. Every word was a stab in my heart. "Emily, this is your apartment. You have the right to decide what goes in it." "I know, Mom. But it is harder in practice than it seems." One Friday afternoon, 2 weeks after returning from the honeymoon, I decided to visit without warning. I needed to see with my own eyes how my daughter really was. I brought a large pot of homemade lasagna I had made the day before, her favorite dish since she was a child. I also brought fresh rolls and a carrot cake with chocolate frosting. I rang the doorbell several times before Emily opened. When she opened the door, I was shocked by what I saw. She was unrecognizable, hair tied in a messy ponytail, with strands sticking out everywhere. She was wearing an old sweatshirt that was too big, probably Preston's, pajama pants with stains. But what alarmed me most were her eyes. They were red, swollen, with dark circles even deeper than at the airport. "Daughter, what happened? Are you sick?" "Nothing, Mom. I am just tired." She did not even try to make the lie sound convincing. "Do not lie to me. I am your mother. I know when you are lying since you were 3 years old." She looked back, inside the apartment, checking if she was alone, and then lowered her voice to a whisper. "Preston is not here. He went to his parents' house last night and hasn't come back yet." "Why? What happened?" My heart was racing. We fought again. About the apartment. About money. About everything. He said he can't stand living here anymore. That this place is too small. That he feels suffocated. He said he is going to stay at his parents' until I come to my senses and agree to sell. "And you? Are you going to agree?" She did not answer. She just started crying there in the doorway. I went in, closed the door behind me, and hugged her tight. "You are not going to sell that apartment. Are you listening to me? for anything in this world. We went in. The apartment already had some furniture. A gray sofa in the living room that looked uncomfortable and expensive. A glass dining table cold and without personality. A huge TV on the wall. Everything very impersonal, lifeless, soulless. It looked like a furniture store display, not a home. "Where are your things?" I asked, looking around. "Your books you always loved? Your plants that filled the house when you lived with me? Those colorful embroidered pillows your grandmother made? The family photos?" Preston said they do not match the style of the apartment, that he wants a modern and minimalist look, that my things are too tacky. She said the word with so much regret it broke my heart. Tacky? Your things are tacky? I felt the rage rising. "Emily, listen to what I am saying. This is your apartment. Yours. It is in your name. If you want to fill it with plants, pillows, photos, dogs, whatever, you can. No one can stop you. No one. But we live together, Mom. I need to consider what he wants too. Considering does not mean ignoring your desires and your personality completely. Considering means reaching an agreement, a middle ground. It means sometimes things are your way, sometimes his way. Not always his way, while you disappear." We heated the food in the kitchen. The kitchen, at least, had some utensils and looked more used. There were pots hanging, spices organized, a jar with wooden spoons. "At least here he lets me do what I want," Emily said with a sad and ironic smile. "He says the kitchen is female territory, that he does not care how I organize it because he does not even come in here." How generous of him. I could not avoid the heavy sarcasm. We ate together at the cold and uncomfortable dining table. The lasagna was good, warm, seasoned the way she liked. But Emily barely ate. She pushed the food around the plate, ate a few bites out of politeness, but I could see she had no appetite. "I miss you, Mom," she said suddenly. Her voice choked. "I miss living with you. I miss our conversations in the kitchen late at night. I miss you doing my hair before sleeping like you did when I was a child. I miss feeling safe." I held her hand across the table. "I miss you every day too, my love. The house feels so empty without you. But this is your life now, your marriage. You have to make it work. You have to try. And if it doesn't work," the question came out in a desperate whisper. "And if I made a terrible mistake?" The question stayed floating in the air between us, heavy and terrifying. "Then you have options. This apartment, your degree in administration, your skills, your job. You are not trapped. You are not depending on his goodwill to have a place to sleep." She nodded slowly, but I saw in her eyes she did not believe it totally. Not yet. Preston arrived around 7 in the evening. He walked through the door with that arrogant attitude that was becoming his trademark. When he saw me, his expression got even worse. "Linda," he greeted me without smiling, my name sounding like a curse in his mouth. "I didn't know you were coming. No one told me we would have visitors. I brought food for you. Real food, made with love. I already ate at my parents' house. Real food. Food prepared by a professional chef who knows how to make sophisticated dishes. Not this kind of simple poor people food." The implication was clear, as water and cruel as a whip. My home cooking was not good enough. I was not good enough. Emily and everything that came from her were not good enough. I got up and started gathering the plates calmly, controlling every movement so as not to do anything abrupt. "Well, I am going to let you rest. I am going to let you talk." Emily accompanied me to the door. When Preston could not hear us because he had gone to the bedroom, I whispered quickly, "If you need me, call me. Any time of day or night, no matter the time. Are you listening to me?" "Okay, Mom. I love you. I love you too more than anything in this world." In the taxi back home, I cried. I cried because my daughter was suffering and I could not do anything more than having given her that apartment. I cried because I saw my little girl disappearing little by little, being erased by a man who should love her, but only wanted to control her. I cried because I knew things were going to get much worse before getting better. The weeks turned into months of growing silence. Emily kept calling me, but less and less frequently. When we talked, it was always the same litany. "Everything is fine, Mom. Don't worry about me." But I was worried all the time. The worry consumed me, stole my sleep, took away my appetite. One Saturday morning, 4 months after the wedding, my phone rang. It was Arthur, Preston's father. I was surprised. He had never called me before. Linda, I need to speak with you. It is urgent. Tell me, did something happen? My heart raced. Not on the phone. Can we meet today? It is about Preston and Emily. We agreed on a small coffee shop in a quiet neighborhood, far from where anyone from the family could see us. I arrived first, nervous, ordering a coffee that sat cooling on the table. Arthur arrived 15 minutes later. He seemed to have aged 10 years since the wedding, thinner, more hunched, with more gray hair. "Thank you for coming," he said, sitting heavily. "I didn't know who else to talk to. I don't know what to do. What happened?" He sighed deeply, a sigh that seemed to come from the bottom of his soul. "I am worried about my son, about what he is becoming, or rather, about what he always was, and I pretended not to see." He told me that Preston had arrived at his parents' house the night before, furious, saying that Emily was impossible to deal with, that she did not respect him, that she was stubborn, that she did not know how to be a good wife, that everything would be different if she simply sold that apartment and deposited the money in a joint account. My wife, of course, agreed with everything. Arthur continued bitterly. She was feeding that rage of his, saying that Emily is rebellious, that you spoiled her, that the two of you are conspiring against him. It is absurd, but he believes it. And you? What do you think? He looked at me with tired, defeated eyes. I think my son became exactly what my wife wanted him to be. A man who believes the world revolves around him, that women exist to serve him, that marriage is about control, not collaboration. He also told me about his eldest daughter, Gabrielle, whom I had seen only briefly at the wedding. She had been in an unhappy marriage for 15 years. The husband controlled her, checked her calls, limited her money, isolated her from the family. And I did nothing, he admitted with tears in his eyes. I remained silent. I let my wife say it was normal, that marriage was like that. I was a coward. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want Emily to suffer the same. Because I saw what you did at the wedding, the apartment you gave her, and I realized that you are a much braver mother than I ever was as a father. So, what can I do? Be attentive to her. Do not let Preston convince her to sell that apartment, because if he manages to take away the only thing that is hers alone, he will have total control. And then there will be no way out. We left that coffee shop with a tacit agreement. He was going to try to talk to his son, although he doubted it would do any good. I was going to continue supporting Emily, giving her strength to resist. 2 days later, a Monday night, Emily called me. It was already past 11. I was almost asleep. "Mom, can you come here, please? What happened? Are you okay? Just come, please. I need you." Her voice was strange. It was not exactly panic, but there was something wrong. I took a taxi immediately. I did not even change clothes. I went in pajamas with a coat over them. When I arrived at the apartment, the door was unlocked. I entered calling. "Emily, where are you?" I found her sitting on the living room floor, leaning against the sofa, hugging her knees. She was shaking. "Honey!" I ran to her and hugged her. "What happened?" "He locked me in, Mom." Preston locked me in the bedroom for 3 hours because I told him I was not going to sell the apartment. My blood froze completely. I felt as if someone had thrown ice water into my veins. "What? What do you mean he locked you in?" she told between sobs. They had argued again about the apartment. Preston wanted to sell, buy something bigger with both names. Emily refused. The argument heated up. He pushed her into the bedroom, not with force, but he pushed her and locked the door from the outside. She stood banging, screaming. He did not open. Only after 3 hours, when he calmed down, did he unlock it. "This is false imprisonment," I told her, trying to keep my voice calm, but failing. "You know that, right? It is a crime. You can report him." "I know, but I cannot do that. The scandal, his family, what are people going to think?" "Emily, he locked you in a room. That is not normal. That is not love." "I know, Mom. That is why I called you, because I need to get out of here. I need to think away from him." I helped pack a suitcase. Clothes, toiletries, important documents, and mainly, the papers for the apartment that were still kept in a drawer. When we were almost finishing packing, we heard the key in the lock. Preston. He had gone for a walk to calm down and was returning. He came in and saw us with the suitcase. "Where are you going?" "I am going to stay a few days at my mother's house," Emily replied with a surprisingly firm voice. "You are not going anywhere. You are my wife. Your place is here with me." "Wife is not property," I rebutted, stepping between him and her instinctively. "And you crossed an unacceptable line today when you locked her in a room. That was nothing. I just needed her to calm down, to stop being stubborn. You deprived her of her liberty. That has a name. It is called a felony." He took a step forward, menacing. For the first time, I was physically afraid of him, afraid of what he might do. "Get out of my house. This is not your house. It is Emily's, and she is leaving with me now." I held Emily's hand, and we started walking toward the door. Preston stood in the middle of the living room, fists clenched, breathing heavy. "You are going to regret this, both of you. My family has lawyers, the best lawyers. We are going to sue you. I am going to take that apartment from her. I am going to prove it was given in bad faith to destroy our marriage." "Good luck trying," I replied without looking back. "Everything was done legally. Everything is documented. And now we have one more thing documented: you locking your wife in a room against her will." We left. We ran down the stairs, as if we were fleeing a fire. We only breathed relieved when we were inside the taxi, moving away from the building. Emily stayed at my house for a whole week. During that time, we looked for a lawyer specializing in family law and domestic violence cases. Dr. Monica was a woman of about 40 years, short hair, direct and firm gaze that inspired confidence immediately. We told her everything, from the wedding to the maid's uniform, from the apartment I gave as a gift, from the constant arguments, and finally about the day he locked her in. She wrote everything down meticulously, without interrupting us once. When we finished, she looked up and looked directly at Emily. "You have a very clear case: psychological violence, false imprisonment, coercive control. We can file for divorce and a restraining order so he does not come near you." "A restraining order?" Emily seemed scared by the seriousness of that. "Is it not an exaggeration?" "It is not an exaggeration when he already showed he can lock you up against your will. Today it was a bedroom. Tomorrow it can be worse, much worse. We cannot take risks. But he is my husband. We got married only 4 months ago, and in 4 months he already isolated you from your friends, criticized you constantly, tried to force you to sell your only property, and locked you in a room." The lawyer spoke with gentleness but firmness. "Emily, this is not going to get better. Men like that do not change. They only get gradually worse." We left the office with a stack of documents: divorce petition, request for temporary restraining order, request for alimony in case Emily was pregnant. Everything very serious, very real, very terrifying. Emily was pale as paper. "I don't know if I can do this, Mom. Everything is so definitive, so permanent. You can do it, and you will, because you deserve more than that. You deserve someone who loves you for real, not someone who wants to control you." But I knew the decision had to be hers. I could not force her. I could not decide for her. I could only stand by her side, supporting her, waiting for her to find strength. That night, lying in my bed, like when she was little and had nightmares, Emily finally spoke. "I am going to sign the papers tomorrow. I am going to ask for a divorce. Are you sure?" "No, but it is the right thing. For me, for my future, for the woman I want to be." And there, in that moment, I knew my daughter had finally found her strength, that the apartment I had given her was not just a place to live. It was the symbol of her freedom. It was the physical proof that she would always have options. And now, finally, she was ready to use those options. The next day, we signed all the papers at the lawyer's office. Emily's hand trembled when she signed her name on the divorce petition, but she signed. Every signature was an act of courage. Every page turned was a step toward freedom. The lawyer filed everything at the court that same afternoon. Preston would be notified in 3 days. "Be prepared," warned Dr. Monica. "When he receives the notification, he is going to react. And it is probably not going to be a good reaction. Men like him hate losing control." She was right. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Preston. I didn't even answer. He called 5, 10, 15 times. Then the messages started. Tell Emily to call me immediately. She is making the biggest mistake of her life. My family is going to destroy you both in court. Emily was also receiving calls and messages. Hundreds of them. Some from Preston, others from Victoria, others from friends of the couple. Please, don't do this to him. Think of the family. Think of what God is going to think. As if God approved locking someone in a room. 3 days after the notification, Preston appeared at my building. The doorman called me. Mrs. Miller, there is a young man here saying he is your son-in-law. He says he needs to speak with you urgently. Do not let him up, please. If he insists, call the police. He insisted. He stood screaming at the intercom. The doorman had to call security to remove him. That night, Emily cried. Mom, am I doing the right thing? He seems so desperate, so remorseful. He is desperate about losing control, not about losing you. If he truly loved you, he never would have treated you that way. A week later, we received a formal proposal from the Sterling family through lawyers. If Emily dropped the divorce and went back to Preston, Arthur would buy a bigger apartment for them, in her name only. A 3-bedroom apartment in a luxury building. A bribe disguised as a gift. Are they trying to buy you? I explained. Trying to bribe you to go back. That tells you everything about the kind of family they are. Emily read the proposal several times. For a moment, I thought she was going to accept. But then she tore the paper in half. I don't want anything from them. I have my apartment. The apartment you gave me because you love me, not because you want to control me. In the following months, the divorce process went slowly. The Sterling family hired the best lawyers money could buy. They tried to paint Emily as an unstable wife, as someone who had been manipulated by her mother, as a person who abandoned the marriage without reason. But we had proof. Threatening text messages, witnesses from the day he locked her in, the doorman's testimony about the day Preston appeared screaming. And we had Arthur's testimony. He testified in favor of Emily, against his own son. It was one of the bravest things I saw someone do. My son is wrong, he said in formal testimony before the judge. He was raised to be spoiled and selfish. My wife spoiled him, and I did not have the courage to correct him. Emily deserves better. She and any future children they might have. Victoria almost fainted when she heard her husband say that. She left the courtroom screaming, causing a scene. But it didn't matter. The truth was finally being told. The divorce was granted a year and a half later. Emily kept the apartment, as if there were any doubt. Preston would have to pay alimony if they had had children, but since they didn't, he paid nothing. He also had to pay the legal costs because he was considered guilty for the dissolution of the marriage. The day the final sentence came out, Emily and I went to the apartment, her apartment. It was exactly as we had left it. But now it seemed different. It seemed lighter, as if a weight had been removed. It is mine, she said, walking through the rooms. Really mine, just mine. Forever, forever, I repeated. In the following months, Emily began to transform the apartment. She bought colorful pillows. She filled it with plants. She put family photos on the walls. She painted a living room wall vibrant yellow. She changed the cold and expensive sofa for a more comfortable and cozy one. She transformed that impersonal space into a real home, a home of hers. She also started seeing her friends again. She picked up hobbies she had abandoned. She started taking dance classes. She met other women who had gone through difficult divorces. They formed a support group. They met every week to talk, cry, laugh, strengthen each other. And professionally, she blossomed. She received a promotion at work, then another. In 3 years, she was a project manager, earning more than Preston had ever earned. Do you know what the best part is? She told me one day. It is realizing that I always had this strength inside me. I just needed a safe place to find it, and that place was the apartment you gave me. 5 years after the divorce, Emily met someone. Richard, a music teacher, divorced, father of a 6-year-old boy. They met in a park where Emily had started taking walks on Sundays. I was skeptical at first, of course. After Preston, I distrusted any man who approached my daughter. Mom, he is different, Emily guaranteed me. He respects me. He listens to me. He does not try to change me or control me. When he found out about the apartment, do you know what he said? What? He said he was glad I had something that is mine alone. He said he thinks it is healthy, that he also has his own apartment and intends to keep it that way, even if we get married one day. I watched their relationship for months with hawk attention, looking for signs, looking for red flags. But Richard was exactly as Emily described him, kind without being suffocating, supportive without being controlling, present without being possessive. He respected her boundaries. He included her in decisions. He did not try to rush anything. 2 years after starting dating, they got married. But this time it was completely different. The ceremony was small and intimate in the park where they met. Only close family and dear friends. There were no humiliating gifts. There was no toxic mother-in-law. There was only love, respect, and genuine celebration. At the dinner after the ceremony, I made an emotional toast to my daughter Emily, the strongest woman I know, who went through fire and came out brighter on the other side, who learned that her strength does not come from having a man by her side, but from knowing who she is with or without him, who built a home that is hers, a life that is hers, an identity that is hers. I am infinitely proud of the woman you became. Emily cried and hugged me tight. None of this would be possible without you, Mom. Without that apartment saved me. It literally saved me. Richard also hugged me. Thank you for loving your daughter enough to protect her. I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of her. Today, 8 years after that disastrous marriage with Preston, Emily is happier than ever. She and Richard live each in their own apartment, but spend half the time at each other's house. They have a healthy, balanced relationship where both maintain their independence but choose to be together. The apartment I gave her remains her refuge, her safe harbor, the place she goes when she needs solitude, reflection, to reconnect with herself. And she never, ever considered selling it. This apartment is worth more than any money, she always says. It is the physical reminder that I always have options, that I am never trapped. As for Preston, I heard he got married again. Twice, actually, and both marriages lasted less than 2 years each. Each woman eventually realized who he really was, and left. His last ex-wife looked for me through mutual friends. She wanted to know if I could help her with the name of my lawyer. I gave her all the information, and I cheered for her, just as I cheered for my daughter. Victoria still blames everyone but her son. She spreads to anyone who will listen that Emily was the one who destroyed the marriage, that I manipulated everything, that we were the villains of the story. But fewer people listen to her now. Even her closest friends have already realized the pattern. Arthur passed away 2 years ago from cancer. Before dying, he asked to see Emily one last time. She went, bringing flowers. Thank you. They were practically his last words. Thank you for having the courage to leave, for being the example my daughter needed to see, for being stronger than I ever was. Emily cried a lot at his funeral. Not for Preston, who was there in a black suit feigning sadness, but for his father, for the good man who got trapped in an unhappy marriage out of cowardice, who raised troubled children out of fear of confronting his wife, but who in the end found courage to do the right thing. Today, as I write this story, I am 68 years old, hair completely gray now, wrinkles that were not there 8 years ago. But when I look in the mirror, I see a woman who made a difference, a woman who changed the course of her daughter's life, and that is priceless. Emily is 34 years old now. She is a successful executive. She has a robust savings account, investments, and she still has that apartment, always that apartment, which represents much more than square feet of concrete. It represents freedom. It represents options. It represents unconditional motherly love. Sometimes I think about that night in the party hall, about the maid's uniform Victoria gave, about Preston's face when he said, "Perfect. She is going to need this." And then I think about his face when Emily read the deed to the apartment, when he realized he had just lost all the control he thought he would have. And I regret nothing, not a second. Every penny saved, every extra shift worked, every piece of jewelry sold, every sacrifice was worth it. Because my daughter is free, because my daughter owns her own life, because my daughter learned she is worth more than any maid's uniform. Recently, Emily told me she is thinking of buying a second apartment as an investment, and wants to put it in the name of some niece or cousin who might need it one day. I want to do for another woman what you did for me, she explained. I want to give someone the same opportunity you gave me. I cried when I heard that. I cried because I realized I had not only saved my daughter, I had started a legacy. A legacy of mothers protecting their daughters, of women giving other women the tools to be free, and that legacy is going to continue. For all the mothers listening to this story, protect your daughters, not just with words and advice, but with concrete actions. An apartment, a bank account, a professional education, something that is hers alone, something no one can take away from her, because the world is still difficult for women. There are still many Prestons out there, many Victorias, many families who see women as property. And for all the daughters, you deserve respect. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to have a voice in the decisions that affect your lives. Never let anyone make you feel small. Never accept less than you deserve. Never put on the maid's uniform someone tries to give you, be it literal or figurative. And if you are in a relationship where you feel controlled, minimized, imprisoned, leave. I know it is difficult. I know it is scary. I know you fear judgment, family, society, but your life and your freedom are worth more than any outsider's opinion. That maid's uniform Victoria gave still exists. Emily kept it in a box at the bottom of the closet in the apartment. Why do you still have it? I asked her once. As a reminder, she replied. Every time I look at it, I remember who I do not want to be. I remember how it felt to be small. I remember the moment you gave me the deed, and everything changed. It is my reminder to never again accept being treated like that. The apartment where it all started remains her sanctuary. She decorated and redecorated it several times over the years. Now it has plants in every corner, shelves full of books, photos of happy moments on the walls. A small balcony with comfortable chairs where she drinks coffee every morning. It is a perfect reflection of who she is. Even married to Richard, did you never want to live together? I asked her once. We don't need to, she replied. Our relationship works like this. We have our spaces. We visit each other. We spend time together because we want to, not because we need to. And when I need solitude, I come to my apartment, my refuge, my sacred place. Richard understands completely. In fact, he has the same arrangement. His own space he maintains independent. It is healthier this way, he explained to me once. We are two whole people choosing to be together, not two desperate halves looking for completion. This is mature love, healthy love. Very different from what Preston offered, which was control disguised as love. Possessiveness painted as care, prison sold as protection. My sister Sarah, who inspired all this with her own tragic story, finally rebuilt her life too. At 53, she went back to work. She saved money. And last year she bought her own small apartment. Never again am I going to depend on anyone, she told me the day she signed the deed. And so the cycle continues. Women learning, women strengthening themselves, women freeing themselves. One at a time, one apartment at a time, one story at a time. If this story touched your heart in any way, know that you are not alone. There are thousands, millions of women going through the same thing, facing controlling husbands, toxic mothers-in-law, families that want to minimize them. But there is also a way out. There always is. Sometimes it comes in the form of an apartment, as it was for Emily. Sometimes in the form of a job that gives you financial independence. Sometimes just in the form of courage to take the first step. But it exists. The way out exists. You just have to believe you deserve to find it. I am 68 years old now. My knees hurt when it rains. My hands have arthritis. My eyesight is not so good anymore. But when I look at my daughter, when I see the strong and independent woman she became, I know I lived well. I know I made a difference. I know my life had purpose. And when Emily looks at me, I see gratitude in her eyes. I see love. I see respect. But above all, I see freedom. And there is no greater gift a mother can give a daughter than the freedom to be who she really is. So that is it. This is my full story. The story of how a maid's uniform and an apartment changed everything. The story of how a mother's love can be both shield and sword. The story of how a 60-year-old woman who worked double shifts, sold her jewelry, and saved every penny saved her daughter from a future of submission and control. If you are listening to this, I hope this story plants a seed of courage if you are a woman in a bad relationship, a seed of action if you are a mother with a daughter about to get married, a seed of awareness if you are a man who needs to rethink how he treats the women in his life. The world is changing, slowly, but it is. Every story like ours contributes a little. Every woman who leaves an abusive relationship inspires another. Every mother who protects a daughter teaches other mothers. Every man who truly respects his partner shows other men how it should be. And maybe, just maybe, a day will come when stories like mine are no longer necessary. A day when no mother-in-law gives a maid's uniform as a wedding gift. A day when no daughter needs a secret apartment to feel safe. A day when all women are treated as equals, not as property. If you liked this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments which part impressed you. Oh, and do not forget to become a member to access exclusive videos I do not publish here. See you there.